Hello everyone, I am Kalyan and I enable various stakeholders in Kissflow. I am delighted today to host the webinar on how to build an expense management app on Kissflow's work platform. Before we begin the practical side of it, let's understand what an expense management app is. An expense management app allows organizations to track all the expenses made or claimed by employees during their international trips. So here, this expense management app, the functionalities of this app is that it allows employees to record their expenses through their mobile apps itself, and it also supports multi-currency expensing, which means it converts various currencies to one base currency and allows the accounting to be more smooth. And thirdly, there is a lot of transparency between the admin team and the employee because the online expense recorder and the travel reimbursement is made through the app itself. And all this allows the admin team to get advanced reports and also to have real-time data on their dashboards. So who are the roles that interact with this app? So the first role is that of the admin. So the role, when we say role, so these are independent actions taken by a group of people. So in this case, it is an admin, and the admin is going to share a trip planner. So they are going to create a trip planner and assign it to a specific employee. And then comes the travel reimbursement requests, which is where the admin, they approve travel reimbursement requests. And also the admin team defines the per diem cost for each region. And of course, the admin team can look into advanced reporting. And now looking at the employee role, basically once they get the trip planner assigned to them, they start recording the expenses. And then they would also, once the expenses are recorded, they will mark the trip completion, and that will automatically create an expense, online reimbursement request. And that again is going to be transparent because the employee as well as the admin team, they both can track the reimbursement. So how it works is the admin team, first they create a new trip in the trip planner. Once it is created and it is moved to a specific stage, which is the initiate trip stage, then it will automatically create an employee expense recorder, which is assigned to that specific employee. Now, the employee, they are going to make real-time expenses, they're going to record real-time expenses in that particular expense recorder form. And once that is completed, once they mark it as completed, it is going to create an online travel reimbursement request. It is going to create a travel reimbursement request. And finally, the travel reimbursement request is going through a workflow, which is going to get approved by the admin team, and it goes to the finance team for the reimbursement to be processed. So it's a very straightforward workflow. It's a very straightforward functionality. So what do we need for this is that we need three different components or three different modules of an app working in tandem. First thing is that we need a board form, which we call the trip planner, and that is going to be initiated by the admin team. Secondly, we need two data forms. One is the expense recorder, and the other one is a country to currency code master. So the currency code to which country is what we maintain in that data form. So that is going to be the master data for the admin team. And thirdly, we have the travel reimbursement process, which has a workflow, which has the finance team involved as well. And what pages do we need? When we talk about for app, the page is going to be the front end of the app. So here, the first page is going to be the admin console, which contains various KPIs like total claims processed, the pending claim requests, the number of pending claim requests, and the number of pending reimbursements. And what the employee sees on his console is that what are the current trip details and the expense recorder where they can track their live expenses, and also they'll find a total expenses per total per diem ratio. So now let's begin building the app. So let's get into the practical side of building the app. All right, so now let's see how to create an expense management app. So first we will create an app in the production environment, and we are automatically redirected to the development environment. And here I'm just naming the app. So in the previous slide, we have identified two roles, and we have also identified the forms necessary and also the process forms, what kind of forms are needed. So first, let's go ahead and set the role. So we have an admin role already available by default. Now we will just rename this user role to employee. And for now, let's leave the home page and the navigation as the default ones. I'm just saving this. And now we'll have to define the forms. So first, let's start with a board form. And here I have a form called the trip planner. So let's create a new board form and call it the trip planner. And the item type is going to be a new trip. So it's going to be a trip, and ID prefix, we could call it TRP. And this is just for the prefix of the request number or the task number. Now let's create one. So in the board form, first let's add a new section and call it the trip details. And under this, first let's change this untitled field to employee. And the field type is going to be the field type is going to be user. And here we are going to here the trip planner, in the trip planner, the admin is going to select the employee and assign that particular trip to this employee. Right. So here I'm just extracting that employee's email. So let's call it the employee email. This is later used for a filter. So here I'm just going to add a formula here, calling it the employee, which is the user field we just created, dot email. Now let's add a summary. So let's just push the section up and let's drag the summary here. And let's rename it to trip summary. And it's just a simple text field. And yes, it is a required field. So now we need two dates for the trip start date and the end date. So I'm going to use a date field. So I'm going to call it trip start date. And another date field, which we will call it the trip end date. And now we will also have a list of countries. Which is from a drop down, the admin should be able to select countries. So here I have a list, and in this list, let's just simply create a new list. Or let me just check if I have already a country list. I have a list of countries. And let's just select a simple one. Okay, so instead of using a list here, let's connect it with a data form. So here I already have a data form. We'll have to create a data form first. So let's pause that for a minute. Let's just delete this and create a data form later. So for now, save this. And let's create a data form for the country and the currency master, which we defined here. So we need a country and currency code master so that for every country, a specific per diem cost is assigned. So here, let's just quickly do that. I'm saving this board form for now. Let's get to a data form and create a new data form and call it the country currency code master. Inside this, let's just rename the section to the same country slash currency code. And here, instead of the untitled field, we'll have it as country. And let's create another text field and call it currency code. And have one more currency field here and call it the per diem cost. And per diem, we will set it as a base currency. The base currency is going to be USD. And that's about it. So we can have, let's save this. And now for the admin to input this on the page, we need to create a view. So I'm creating a view here. I'm creating a data sheet view so that it's going to be very similar to a Excel sheet or spreadsheet where they can just directly enter details. So here I'm going to call it country currency view. And in this view, I'm just going to add the country, the currency code, and the per diem cost. And let's save this. So now we have the form. So this is going to serve as the master. We have the view for it. And now let's just close this. And let's get back to the board. In the trip planner, so we need to have the list of countries. So I'm going to have a drop down and call it country. And instead of a list, I'm going to use the data form we just created, the country currency code master, in which I'm going to select the country. There is none. For now, I'm just leaving it as it is. And I'm also going to have a per diem cost. let's pull it from the same data form and per diem in USD. And this is also going to come from the data form, the same data form that we created. Let's select the per diem cost and select it here. Just that the currency code should be equal to this value here. So whichever country we select, it should fetch that country's per diem cost, right? And let's just shrink this. And also now let's get the total number of days. So the total number of days is going to be the difference between the end date and the start date. So I'm just naming it as number of days. And is this a computed field? Yes. In this field, we are going to use the function dateDiff. And I'm going to select the end date, comma start date, comma within double quotes, I place day. And as a rule of thumb, we just need to add +1 because it negates the start date from the difference, right? So now let's go ahead and add. Now that we have the currency, the country and its per diem with respect to per diem cost, we need to select, we need to convert that to the local currency, to the local currency's value. So for that, I have a separate API for that. So let's call that API. So we are going to use remote lookup, and here I'm going to call this Forex rate. And here I have an API for that. So I'll just paste that API here with the access token. And this is going to be a GET request. And there are no headers and body required for this particular API, free currency API. And we just have to set the JSON path. And the JSON path is going to be $.data.currency code. Which means we'll also have to extract the currency code from this country. So let's just add a dropdown and call it the currency code. Again, it's going to be the data form in which we have the currency code. Select that. And let's just shrink this and put it down. And here inside this, inside the JSON path, I'm going to add the currency code. So now we are going to make it dynamic. We will see how this works in runtime. This is just the setup part. And just save it for now. So to test it, we should actually create a page and test it. So let's do that in some time. So for now, I'm just creating a view. Not just a view. Before that, we'll have to connect these three dropdowns. So which means I have a country here. So I'm just from that specific country, I need to extract this currency code, which means this currency code's filter is going to change, which means the country should be equal to the field country. And that will select, so it's going to automatically select the first value. And here, the per diem cost also has to be filtered. And that particular country's country or the currency code should be equal to the field, the currency code. Select that. And yes, it has to select just one value, and that's about it. And now we'll have to get the total per diem cost and also the destination's currency conversion value. So the total per diem cost is going to be the number of days into the number of days that has been applied for the trip into the per diem cost. So here we'll first create a total per diem currency field. Total per diem, and this is going to be this is the computed field, yes. And now let's open the formula editor. So now that we are getting the per diem cost, the per diem value from the list, which is in the data form. Now let's click on save. So let's park this here for a moment because I would like to first create a page and then explain this in much detail. So here, first let's create the board is done, the data forms, we have the country currency. Now let's create an expense recorder form. But before that, we need to have the trip planner ready, which is this board completely done. So for now, let's park the other data form. And now let's get into the page. So we just have to create two different pages. So this home page, let's just create a new page, call it the admin console. And in the admin console, it's completely from scratch. We are creating a new page from scratch. So inside this, first, let's set the body's background color. So here it's going to be an image, and the background image is a link. So you'll have to upload this image in IMGBB or any free hosting site, image hosting site, and you will be able to see that. So now let's contain, or let's cover. So yeah, so now we have the background image of the body. So now let's just save it. And now let's first add a container. And inside the container, let's drop a label. And this label is going to be named admin console. And let's just change this to 20, and the color would be any of this color, and it's going to be bold. And select the container and select the style properties of the container. And now let's set this to center alignment. Now that we have this, let's just check this size. So it is 20, and yeah. So now let's add the next container, and let's drag and drop a tab inside that. So instead of going for navigations, we can also use an alternative approach by using tabs. So I'm just dragging and dropping a tab inside this. So in this tab, I'm just going to have the first tab named as dashboard. And that's going to be the default tab. And then we'll have something called the trip planner. And then the next one is reimbursement requests. And then we have the fourth tab will be for country and the per diem master. So this is where the admin team is going to enter all these details. So inside this per diem master, so let's select that. And here, let's drag and drop the view that we created. So I'm selecting which data form. It's this country currency code master. Let's drag and drop this view here. So now that it's empty, we are not able to see any countries there. We cannot map anything there as the filter. So we can, but however, seeing is believing. So I wanted to show this before we create the trip planner. So here, so I'm just adding save and preview. So this is how it would look in runtime. Right. So now let's go back to the editor, and let's, of course, you can also edit, you can also export values after creating, but for now, let's just get back to creating the dashboard. So now that we have the dashboard, let's first create put a container here. So let's have a 25-75 layout. So with this two column layout, I can achieve that, but let's create a container here and select this container and set it to 25%. And the height, let's set it to 400 pixels. So this is going to give us this kind of rectangular box view. And let's drag another container, drop it here. And this one, this container, select this container and set it to 75% by 400. So now we have two different layouts here. So now first let's drag and drop cards here. So I'm just selecting a card here. So now this card, let's set some padding to this card. This card, let's get to the style properties of the card and set it to, so the padding and margin, let's set it to 10 all around. And now we have this card's size, let's set it to 300 pixel. And now let's round it off by adding some shadow. Let's add some shadow. And of course, let's add some radius to it. So which means the corners are neatly rounded off. And now let's set the card name to reimbursements processed. And the value is going to be dollar Let's add some static value. Let's see how to automatically or dynamically fill this later. That's by using low code. But for now, all that we are doing is without writing a single piece of code, we are building a dashboard. So this is going to be interesting. So now let's see how to change the icon. Let's select dollar. So we have the first card. Now just copy this card and paste it here. And here, select the container and align it to the center. So now we can change this to pending reimbursements. And pending reimbursements is going to be a count. So let's just keep it as 5 for now. And let's change the source, the icon source. Let's call it a bell. Let's use this. And likewise for the third card, let's call it total per diem expense or total expense. Let's call it total per expense claimed. And here it's going to be, let's change the figure value, the currency value here. Again, it's a static value for now. Let's change, yeah, it's the same dollar, so that's fine. Let's leave it as it is. And now now here we need to add a few report elements in this container, which we will come back later. And for now, let's save this. Now, for this particular role, we need to set the admin console. Now, I'm just duplicating the admin console, and I'm going to call it the employee console. Within the employee console, we will have a different layout to it, but let's just change it to employee console. It's already changed. And here, I'm just going to add a container on the top. And within this container, I'm just going to place these cards here for a different layout. And let's change this to center. And we don't need this. We don't need a dashboard per se for the employee. So here I'm just getting into this, and here I'm removing it as the default tab. And let's make this as the default tab and delete the dashboard. Now we just have for the employee, we need to have the expense recorder and reimbursement requests. This particular value, this particular option is not required for the employee. So the country and per diem master, I'm just deleting that. And here, instead of trip planner, because the trip planner is not the employee's, it doesn't fall under the employee's role. So let's rename that to expense recorder. And within this expense recorder, we need to use a component of that particular form, of the expense recorder form. We have not created that yet. Let's go do that now. So we have 2 pages ready. I'm just saving this page. And now we have to map these pages to those specific roles. So in this role, in the admin, so let's select the default page as the admin console. So there's no navigations. We are using tabs instead. So let's just save this for now. And for the employee, we will set the home page as employee console. And let's add a user as the employee. And now let's just run our first app that we just created. Let's run it. So this is going to be the admin view. This is from my login. So it just got a simple dashboard, the trip planner, the reimbursement request, and the country per diem master. So this is where the user enters this value, the country and per diem master. So let's just quickly enter a few values here. So now we have few countries entered in the country per diem master. So now let's make this available in the trip planner. So now let's get back here, and in the boards under the trip planner, let's get the total per diem cost first, and then also the total per diem cost for the destination. So here, the number of days have to be multiplied with the per diem cost here. So we select a country. So let's see how this works in runtime before we proceed. So I'm going to create a view, and I'm going to call it the Kanban view. I'm going to use a Kanban view, and I'm calling it the trip planner, and create. So we haven't defined the workflow of this form yet. So let's go ahead and first create the workflow. In this workflow, let's first add, since it is a board, it's going to be a dynamic workflow. So here, as compared to a process workflow, this is going to be much more dynamic. So let's add it as new trip, and in progress, let's call this initiate trip. And let's have a stage, and let's call it trip completed. And that's about it. So let's save this for now and create the view. So this is the view that the admin and the employee are going to see. So sorry, the employee is not going to see that trip planner, but the admin is going to see this. So let's set this to, yeah, it's pretty much set. So let's save this and close it. So now in the page, let's delete the home page. It's not required, but let's go to the admin console. And in the trip planner, let's use that component that we just created, the board component. So this is the board component, and this is the trip planner. So let's drag and drop it here. Now, the admin also needs to have a button so that they can create a new trip. For that, let's add a button here. So the button has gone to the bottom. Let's drag it to the top here. Yeah. Now let's include this button inside a container so that we can move it to the right. So I'm just moving it to the right, or probably we could keep it at the left itself so that it doesn't confuse with these options here. So these are the components options, by default options of the board component. So here, for this button, let's just call it new trip. And when there's a new trip, it is going to open, it is going to create a new board item. So let's close this. And here, for that, we need to have a pop-up. So let's, when this button is clicked, it should open a pop-up and it should open that form. So for that, let's drag and drop a pop-up here. I'm dragging and dropping a pop-up. And let's just set the general settings of the pop-up. Let's make it wider, and let's give it a background color. The background color is going to be gray. And the pop-up name, let's call it new trip. And this color, let's give it white. Right. So now we have a new trip. Let's save this. So within this, so this is the pop-up's body. Within the pop-up's body, beneath it, we have the pop-up container. Let's drag and drop the board form. So here we have the board form. So let's drag and drop this board form here. So we have the trip details and all these here. So here is where the admin selects the country and the per diem cost populates here, and of course the currency code. Let's see how it works. Save it. And now we have to link that button. Now let's link this button. When we say on click, it has to open that pop-up, which we just created, new strip, and save. So any changes that you make in between, you can click on save and preview as well as like run it. So when you click on new trip, this is how it opens the form. And now from this, it lists out all the countries. And now that I selected Australia, it has selected per diem is $60 for Australia, and this is the currency code. So why is this extraction important? So that we need to multiply the 60 into the number of days. Now, let's say I'm selecting 26th and I'm selecting 30. So if it is going to be 5 days, then 5 into 60, the value $300 should populate here. So that is the calculation that we are going to do. So let's get back to the editor. Let's save this for now. Let's go to the board form. So here I'm going to have the currency function. Within that, I have to convert. So whatever goes into a list. So there we have given the AUD value. I mean, like the per diem cost is going to be, since it is a list, or sorry, since it's coming from a data form, it will be a text value. We need to convert that to number in order to achieve this multiplication. So I'm just using the number function, and here I'm saying per diem, that particular per diem cost, and I'm extracting the substring from it, the first two values of it, and now I'm going to multiply the number of days, since that is a number, and then the currency code is going to be USD. So this is the function for it. So let's save it. And now let's also convert that to the local currency. So this is going to be the total per diem in the destination value. Again, it's going to be currency. Let's rename this to total per diem destination currency. And let's save this to, is this a computed field? Yes. And again, the same thing. So let's use the currency function, and inside that I'm using a number and getting the per diem cost dot substring. And within that, I'm mentioning what I need to extract from the substring, and into I'm again converting the number. So the forex rate which we used, I'm getting that forex rate and the currency code into the number of days. So the forex rate says that it is untitled field, not to worry. This forex rate has been set as untitled field. That's the field ID of it. That is fine. So now let's see how it works. And let's also extract, let's have a trip ID here. So apart from the trip summary, let's also have a trip ID. I'm just going to add a new text field, calling it trip ID. And here, let's just use the underscore ID system field, which by default fetches the ID of this particular task. Right now, going forward, we can add one more. Let's just delete this, and you could add the trip dossier, in which there's going to be the visa attached, the passport, and all those details. Let's call it the passport. And then comes the visa, another attachment field. And other details like the bank statement, the flight ticket, all those can be added as attachments. And now let's save this. The destination currency, let's just fix this real quick. Let's just park this. Let's save it and close this for now. And now now that we have the trip planner, let's see how this runs. Now let's run it. So we have the trip planner. So I'm creating a new trip, and I'm selecting Clara. Trip summary is going to be, and country, let it be Australia, and I'm loading this detail here. So this is coming from the remote lookup. So this is the value, and now the total per diem cost should be 5 days. Yeah, it has calculated the total per diem. The destination is not getting calculated. We need to fix that formula for now. So let's just submit it. So now we have assigned it to Clara, and the assignee, you need not set the assignee here. The employee is enough for now. Now let's select the priority. Let's set it to medium and say submit. So now there's a new card created in new trip. Now the CIO event, now the admin team moves it to initiate trip. So we need to have an integration that whenever an item is moved from here to initiate trip, a new expense recorder has to be created. So now let's see how that is done. So before that, we'll also have to create the expense recorder. So let's quickly do that. So I'm getting back to the data form, and now I'm creating a new data form called expense recorder. Create. So here, let's first add the section name, call it trip details. And let's let's drag this and call it trip info. And this is going to be a lookup. And now this is going to look into the trip planner. And what fields do we need from the trip planner? Something like the ID, the assignee, and then you need details like the country, the trip start date, end date, the total number of the per diem, the number of days, and what's the total per diem, the trip ID, and all of the details, and what's the trip summary. Right. So select all that is required, and now let's extract those values so that we can use them in reports. So let's call it the trip summary, and this is going to be trip info dot summary, and then let's extend this. Let's extend the country so that if we want to know how many countries, if you want to create a report on the number of countries, we could do that. So we need to have those extracted as fields in a form. So I'm adding the country here. Let's also extract the employee email from that trip planner. So trip info is the field's name, which is for that lookup. Now let's select employee email. So we haven't selected the email here. So in this lookup, so let's select that. So unless you select it in the lookup, you will not be able to extract it in a field. So that is a point to be noted. And let's select info.email. Yes. And we will pass the trip ID through an integration. For that, we need a text field called trip ID. Yes. And let's leave this for now. And here we need to have a table so that expenses are recorded in real time. So let's call it description. And currency is going to be the base currency, USD. Amount. And then we need to add an attachment. And this is for the receipt. And now we need to have the trip summary section where we are going to aggregate the total amount. So this is the total reimbursement amount the employee is going to claim. So here, this is going to be an aggregate field. And yes, we are going to aggregate values within this form. Hence, I'm checking this toggle. And now select record expenses, which field it's going to be the amount column, and what type of aggregation is going to be sum. And that's about it. And now we can also have an option for the user, for the traveler, to choose whether they have ended the trip, they have closed the trip. That's yes, no field, default value is going to be no. And based on this, the admin can identify whether the trip is closed. So this is where the user manually inputs that value after recording all the expenses. So now let's save this. Now that the form has been saved, let's create a view and call it all my trips. Now I'm going to place a gallery view. This gallery view is going to be placed on a page in the employee's dashboard. So this is going to be all my trips, and let's create one. Now we need to select what data fields we need to add. So here, first I'm going to select this. Card style is going to be the first card, style 1, let it be style 1. And here in the title, in the data mapping, is where we need to select the title as a trip summary, and the caption is going to be the country, and the subtitle, let's keep it as a start date. And here we need to add a data filter so that this data filter is going to make sure that it is going to show the respective trips of that particular employee. So here I'm going to select the email, which is in the form. So employee email should be equal to the field whoever is the current user's email address. So whichever user is logged in, whichever user is mapped under the employee role, it is going to fetch their trips. So that's what it means. So for now there are none. Let's just save it. And Now that it's saved, let's close this. And also let's create another report. And this report is going to be the trip summary. Let's create a chart report and call it the trip summary. And let's use a donut chart, and the dimension is going to be the trip summary. And the measure, let's keep it as the trip summary itself and the count of it. And that's pretty much it. So there are no trips for now. We haven't created any, so it is showing a blank uh, report. So for now, let's close this. That's fine. So now let's get back to the board, the trip planner, and let's create a few reports in the trip planner so that we can use them on the dashboard. So here we already have the all items report. So now let's create one report for the most traveled countries. So now let's use a chart report, and the dimension is going to be country. The measure is also going to be country, just that we're going to get the count of it. So for now, we just have one trip planned for Australia, so it's showing only one. So let's leave it as it is and save it. So now let's get to the dashboard. Let's get to the admin console. And here, let's add these two reports here. So we are just going to, from the trip summary, from the process, we haven't created the report. Let's use this most traveled countries. What I was about to say is we haven't created a process yet, the travel reimbursement. We'll do that in some time. So let's place this here. Now, instead of placing this here, let's just quickly delete it. Now let's add a column layout within this so that we'll have an even two column layout. And these column layouts, let's set the styling for it. Let's select inside the container, select the column, and get to the style properties. So we see that the height is still it's set as auto. Let's keep it as 350 pixels. So we'll have this column layout here. So this is for the whole columns, right? For both the columns. And now let's quickly. I don't think we need to set the color or the background color. It's already set in the home page. And in the first column, let's drag and drop a label. And in this label, let's call it most visited countries. And just beneath that, let's get to this, the board and most travel countries. Just drag it and drop it here. Now in this column, we need to set the styling. So select this particular column, the first column, and set the styling to be center aligned. And this one, this alone, we can set it the whole column. We can set it to 50%, and yes, this should be fine. Now let's select one more label and drop it here, and let's call it ongoing trips. And beneath this, let's use the trip summary that we created. The trip summary report. Yeah. Now we need to set it to the middle. So let's select this whole columns here and select it as the whole container. Let's select it to be center aligned. And column 1 and column 2 has to be center aligned as well. And now we set the columns height to 350. This is fine. And let's set this to 300 and 300 each, 300 by 300. It's already set to 300 by 300. And the columns alone, we have set the height to 350. So all these styling properties enable us to position a few components as in the desired place we need. So we need to be really well adept with the style properties. So that's pretty much it. So we can click save for now. And This is going to be the home, the admin console's dashboard. And in Trip Planner, we have the board and the button. And reimbursement requests, we need to create the process now. Let's quickly do that. So I'm creating a process. Let's create the first process and call it travel reimbursement. And the board, this particular form is going to be fairly simple. So I'm just calling it trip details. And this, let's rename it to my trips. So from my trips, the user can, or the employee can look up to all their trips and select which trip to raise an reimbursement for. So I'm setting a lookup here, and this is going to look towards the expense recorder for all the expenses that they have recorded. And now in that expense recorder, let's select all that is required: the summary, country, start date, end date, the employee, trip ID, total reimbursement amount, and the close trip. So now that is selected, let's stretch this and let's select a currency field and call it reimbursement amount. And is this a computed field? Yes. And this is coming from my trips dot total reimbursement amount. Let's add a section and call it admin approval. And this is where the admin chooses whether they have verified trip expenses. And this is going to be a yes no field. And that's pretty much it. Let's save it. Now we need to set the workflow of the process for the approvals. Now let's set the workflow. So let's just have one admin approval step. And this is going to be set to the admin. This workflow step is going to be assigned to the admin. And of course, you can have an SLA of 2 days and say done. So your admin approval step is set, and your permissions, let's save this. And in the permissions is where you decide what the admin gets to see. So the admin here, it is not going to be a read-only for the admin approval. It has to be an editable step. And of course, the trip details section can be read-only. However, in the start step, this has to be hidden. The admin approval has to be hidden in the start step, and only the trip details section has to be made editable. So that's it. Let's quickly save this. And by default, in the reports, we will find travel reimbursement all details, and that's pretty much for it. And let's close this now. And now we need to set in the admin console, we need to use that component, the process component. So travel in the reimbursement requests tab, let's select the process, travel reimbursement, and let's use my tasks here. So there are no tasks assigned yet. So let's save it. And so we have the country per diem master all set. So we have the reimbursement request, the trip planner, and the dashboard. Now that we just have to make one integration. So that integration is about initiating the expense recorder. So let's quickly set that integration. So this is an internal integration. So I'm calling it and let's create. In this integration, I'm going to select a board, and here when the status of an item is updated, so I'm creating my account. So by default, Kissflow creates an API for that respective user or for the developer. And in the configuration, select the board, the trip planner, test your trigger. And now we need to set a condition. So we have used the control action. And here we are saying the condition is when the status name is going to be initiate trip. That's when it should create and submit a new data form item. So here, let's choose data form. So it's going to create and submit new item. So expense recorder, expense management app. So select that. And now here we just have to map the employee email from the board. and the trip ID. And that's pretty much it. So save, and you could test the action. It'll create an empty item. So let's say done and switch this integration on. So that's about it. So let's run this now. We could also, in the main navigation, we could also remove that home which you see there. So just select this and enter a space here, navigate to nothing and save it. So basically we are removing navigations altogether in this particular app. So this is the first the admin console's dashboard. So this is how it looks. So we are getting the most visited countries and ongoing trips. And then you have your trip planner, your reimbursement requests, and your country per diem master. So now let's quickly create a new trip. Employee is going to be Clara. And start date is going to be 26 to 30. Of course, the trip ID, if it is not having a contextual meaning, of course, you can always hide it. And now let's select the country. So for Malaysia, I'm going to get the current Forex rate. So this is going to be a base rate is going to be USD to Malaysian currency. So that's about it. Per diem cost is this. And of course, if passports and visas need to be attached by the admin, they do that and they will submit it. And that's pretty much it. So let's submit it. So now that we just need to test the integration. So let me open Clara's profile. So this is the employee console. We haven't we haven't built the employee console yet. So let's get into the employee console. So under expense recorder, let's drag and drop all my trips. So this is going to be an expense recorder. All my trips that we created, we are using that component here. So these are all my trips. And in reimbursement requests, let's select a new reimbursement request. This time it is going to be my items from reimbursement request. Select my items. So it says that we haven't created any request yet. Now we'll have to add a button here. So select that button and enclose that button in a container so that we can enclose it in a container. So now select the container, move the button to the right, and now rename the button, call it new reimbursement request. And of course, the background color of the button can be changed. And now we need to set a pop-up again. So let's drag and drop a pop-up here. Let's set the pop-up's width first. And this is going to be new reimbursement. New reimbursement request. And that's pretty much it. So here, let's give it a background color, same gray color and white as the text color. Now within this reimbursement request, I need to select the process and drag and drop the process form. So the process form is the empty form to collect your reimbursement details. And now let's save this. And so now upon this button, we need to set its event that on click, it has to open a pop-up, and that is going to be the new reimbursement request. So let's save it. So that's for the employee console. Now let's quickly run this. So I have the employee console here and the admin console in this tab. So now that we have the trip planner and also the integration set, so let's quickly test that. So this CIO event, I'm moving it to initiate trip. And now we can test how that integration has worked. We can get into the app builder integration, open that integration and see its run history. So we see that it is a success. So you can open it and you can see that the condition is satisfied and it has created a new expense recorder. So let's see that. So I'm moving to the employee console and let's reload this page. It says that you don't have access to this resource. That's fine. So let's quickly get into this. And for every board that we create, so this is the expense recorder board. So for that, we need to share it with all the roles. So here we need to set the admin role, can manage, and the employee role can read only. Likewise, we need to set the shared settings for all the necessary forms. So now let's rerun it. So it says that there are no trips yet. So trip planner. So we have moved one to initiate trip. So it must have created an expense recorder for the CIO event. So let's quickly see what happened. So, okay, seems like something is glitchy here. So trip 0001 has actually passed. If you notice here from the trip ID, it has already passed, but for some reason it is, okay. The fault is we have not set it, my bad. So we have to get to the expense recorder. We haven't set, we haven't passed the trip ID to this particular lookup. So we need to be cautious about that. So this is the filter that I missed. So let's add a filter and let's call it the trip ID should be equal to the field, the trip ID here, and say done. And it should fetch that particular trip's details alone. And let's call it trip expenses. And yes, now let's save it. The employee email was blank in all those fields, hence it did not map it properly. So now this lookup is trip ID. The trip ID in this form should be equal to, this is the source, which is from this is the form, right? The trip ID in the form should be equal to the field, the trip ID in this particular expense recorder. So let's say done. So I'm moving the marketing summit here and also the CIO event. Both are for Clara Barton. Right now, I'm moving back to the Clara Barton's account, and I see that the marketing summit and the CIO event has been created here. Now, the employee will open the form, and this is where they'll start recording the expenses. They call it accommodation 50 and travel another 70, and now let's save. Now we can also set another integration by saying that when the employee clicks on yes, when they close the trip, it should automatically create a travel reimbursement form. But for now, I'm just manually doing that. So now I'm getting into the travel reimbursements. And this is how a new reimbursement request can be created. I'm selecting my trip. So this is going to be the marketing event, or let's say the CIO event. There's no value here. Let's select the marketing event. And now if we have the reimbursement amount of $120, let's submit it. So once the employee submits it, it is waiting for the admin approval. So which I'm again coming back to the admin tasks. And here is where you can set the reimbursement request. So this item is waiting for the admin's approval. So once the admin approves it, you can add one more workflow step for the finance approval, and it can be moved to the finance queue. So hope this helps. So this is how we can create a quick app in less than 30 to 45 minutes. So hope this helps, and see you in the next webinar. Thank you.
Let's quickly dive into the questions. Yes, the recording will be shared to you in a couple of days. Meanwhile, you can also go to kissflow.com/events. You can go look at our previous demo days where we talk about different use cases like ESG or employee management and application tracking system. There are a few other use cases that you can take a look at. That's at kissflow.com/events. So the recording will also go in there in a couple of days, so you can go take a look at it. I will be sending it to you over mail as well. Uh, I have Kalyan with me, so if you have any questions at all regarding expense management, you can send in your question answers. Sorry, so you can send me your questions, and we'll be happy to answer them.
So this is that same expense management app that we've been discussing all this while. So now that we know we have a few couple of forms and all that. So let me show you the new feature that we have. So for example, let's take the same travel reimbursement process form, right? So as you're building the process form, we see that on the right panel, we have basic fields, advanced fields, and AI suggested fields, right? So this is the new feature that I wanted to explain. So this AI suggestions is something that, for example, when you say the moment you say it's a travel reimbursement, uh, the AI engine in the background, it actually identifies what's the use case, and it suggests a few forms a few fields that might be useful or the user or let's say the business user might not have thought about, right? For example, the miles driven, right? And also, is this a business trip? And the overall experience of the travel reimbursement request, right? So we can reuse these fields and we can just drag and drop it, and then go ahead as then these will convert as a user defined field. So we are getting many more AI driven capabilities, like not just the field suggestions, but also we will be getting code snippets in the future. As in, like for example, at any given point, let's say if I want to add an event, let me so here, if I have to drive an event based on an on-change event, so what kind of code snippets can be shown apart from the form details and the global variables? We'll also be getting code snippets in the future. So that is something that we can watch out for. So yeah.
All right, so we have a couple of questions. How to publish the app for user view? I think it's the deployment part.
That's correct. So all this while we have discussed how to build an app in the development environment, but the moment, okay, let me also, cast my screen and show that. So once the app is ready in the development environment, you can quickly go ahead and deploy it. So what this does is it will deploy it to the next environment, which is the production environment. So here you can set the version, and also the build number is auto-generated, and you can deploy it as a new build instead of overwriting the existing app in the production environment. So once this is made available, then in the production environment, this is where you will see the app. Unless you deploy it, you will not be seeing it in the production environment. So here I don't see the expense management app because I haven't deployed it yet.
Also, is it possible to generate a mobile app?
Absolutely. So see, the point of having, let's say, a page builder here. So the moment I get into the admin console, and when I save and preview it, so I can also not just see the web view, but I also can see the mobile view. So this is how my mobile version looks like. Sorry, I would have missed explaining this in the development part, but this is how it looks on my mobile version. And of course, it is a PWA. It's a progressive web app, so it would just be on your home screen, and it's a quick launch to your app. So when you're building the page or when you're building the form itself, you can test it uh, parallelly, and you can see the view. You can adjust the layouts accordingly, and then go ahead with it. Yeah.
All right. Thank you. Mahalakshmi, I hope that answered your question. Um, attendees, in case you have any more questions to ask or would like to get in touch with, is it okay? I have a question again. Is it possible to generate an Android app?
Uh,
Yeah.
we don't have the differentiation between Android and iOS apps per se. The moment you say it's a PWA, it's going to be a generic term. It's going to be a generic thing because it runs on your Chrome instance, on your Google Chrome instance on your phone. So it's just the moment you add it to your home screen. So basically, you just have to have Google Chrome on your phone, whichever platform it is. It is irrespective of which platform it is. You just have need Google Chrome on your phone, and Kissflow runs on it.
Um, Okay, in case you have any questions regarding app building, or you'd like to get in touch with us for a demo, a personalized demo, or you'd like to get a POC done with us, please write to us. You can write to you can write to Lalit at kissflow.com or Ezrala at kissflow.com. You can write to any of us, and we will put you in touch with the right people and we will get this going. So I'd also like to let you know that Demo Days is a monthly activity, an exercise that we do. We talk about use cases that will help enterprise organizations solve a lot of their automation issues. So stay tuned for more such webinars. Let me quickly write down my email in case you want to get in touch. Yes, you can write to Lalit at kissflow.com and we'll get in touch with you and we'll take it forward. So thank you everyone for attending and for being a great audience. We'll see you again in the next version of Kissflow Demo Days. Um, have a great day.